The new revelation that Harlan Crow paid a bunch of money to Clarence Thomas for real estate that he then let Clarence Thomas's mother continue to live in has resulted in no statement yet from Clarence Thomas, but the right-wing billionaire has put out a statement. Crow said that he purchased Thomas's mother's house, where Thomas spent part of his childhood, to preserve it for posterity. Quote, "My intention is to one day create a public museum at the Thomas home dedicated to telling the story of our nation's second Black Supreme Court justice. I approached the Thomas family about my desire to maintain this historic site so future generations could learn about the inspiring life of one of our greatest Americans." Well, if you wanted to preserve it, then why did you change it? That's interesting. ProPublica asked Crow about the additions on Thomas's mother's house, like the new carport, which was not there when Clarence Thomas grew up. Quote, "Improvements were also made to the Thomas property to preserve its long-term viability and accessibility to the public." What in the GD hell are you talking? Are you implying that the carport is there for visitors to the museum to park in, assuming they come one at a time? That is such garbage, Brett.
Harlan, if all like historical preservation museum type places were run the way you're running the future Clarence Thomas Heritage Museum, when you went to Monticello, instead of a dumbwaiter, there would be a smart TV. Instead of a lazy Susan, there would be like a connected refrigerator and state-of-the-art appliances. That is not how anyone runs any of those things. My mom grew up in Hollywood in a place where they're like, we have to preserve it. The bare minimum. It's a part of Hollywood that they're like, it's old and and their rule is you can't change the outside of the house. You grew up in the Nightmare on Elm Street house. By law, you can do whatever you want to the inside, but you can't change the outside of it to preserve it for like the historical vibe of the neighborhood. He changed the outside, which is the thing that traditionally everybody is forced in these kinds of situations to keep the same. Why? Because guys, let's be honest, let's call it what it is. He is giving out favors.
Yep.
And hilariously, those favors are, if you thought Harlan Crow's name sounded made up, the fact that he is doing all this stuff should blow your mind and feel like a work of fiction, that if you saw it in like the White House Plumbers on HBO, you'd think it was a bridge too far.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, again, like I don't know what can potentially come of this, but it is so obvious, so blatant. It's gone on for so long. If you cannot get anything from this, then that is as strong a signal as can be sent to the Supreme Court. Flame on, do anything you want. Like Kagan can just say, hey, Soros, write me a check for $5 million right now. And what are they supposed to do? He's just trying to preserve the long-term viability of her bank account.
Right,
the final point goes to you.
Right, the miners' helmets that people on the right have to like dig through Hunter Biden's laptop to try to find some kind of connection. And if they do to corruption, flame on, guys, I don't care.
Yeah.
It makes it so hypocritical and so ridiculous that they cannot see the searchlights that are like promoting the impropriety here at the Clarence Thomas estate in Savannah, Georgia.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.